you've been on a plane and you felt some turbulence, right? Like
Hmm.
you felt it jerked up and then jerked down.
Yeah, yeah. What
I
is?
would feeling that in real life is one of the wildest things in the world. Like when you're controlling it and when you're the rudder and when you're the pilot, I would say when you're in the air and you get a gust of wind and you bump up a couple feet, or when you like catch some tailwind and you get pushed down, that's where, your heart gets racing and is actually, in a way why I do the sport. When I end up like 20 feet over the ground and all of a sudden I'm freaking out, that's where I think I hit my like, that's the closest thing I'll ever do to a drug, I guess, is just like where you're just fully in the moment, your eyes just narrow in and all your focus is on is going as far as possible.
Hey everyone, welcome to The Row Show, where we are going to be bringing you the ups and downs of life on the road as an acrobatic influencer. We'll be bringing on guests that are leaders of the industry so you can hear their stories and learn from their ups and downs. As I travel the world to new exciting places, I'll be having the hard discussions with our guests and touch on a wide range of topics from athlete development, business of sport, social media, and even philosophy of sport, and give you a full global perspective of freestyle acrobatics. And this week we have 2018 Olympic USA ski jumper Casey Larson, who is going to be talking to us about how it feels to fly a few hundred meters in the air. We will discuss the mechanics of human flight and why ski jumpers do not really consider themselves acrobats, but instead think of themselves as mechanical engineers. Alright guys, let's go! Casey, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, it's pretty cool to watch you guys fly in the air. I was actually just looking into it. It's kind of funny. I actually have a pair of jumping skis right here. I'm in a chalet up north, and I thought it was quite funny, so I rearranged it so I could, kind of show you a little bit of love there. It's kind of funny how it works out. So we're always on the road, But I'm assuming you travel a lot as well. Like you're on the U.S. team, right? So you went to the Olympics in 2018. Can you tell us a little bit about how your story has got you to the Olympics?
Yeah, so I'm part of a team, USA Nordic Sport. Under our umbrella is Nordic ski jumping, which is what I do. My competitions are basically go as far as you possibly can off a big old tower. And then under the USA Nordic umbrella is also Nordic Combined. And that sport is you ski jump, so you do what I do. And then they take those points and you cross country ski. So we're a little bit different from like the US ski team per se. We're not super affiliated with them anymore. We've kind of gone on our own track and we're doing our own thing now. And I'm a proud member of that team, and can't complain.
That's
And then to the 2018 Olympics, yeah, I was able to go, which was awesome. Definitely, I wouldn't say I was lucky. I mean, I was a very good jumper. I was doing pretty good at that time, but I was like the fourth member. So I was that last guy that barely made it on. Moving forward, I was young at that time. I was 19 years old. So moving forward, you're just looking forward to gaining that experience. I loved that experience. I didn't do, I got like 39th place, so like nothing crazy. But then, having that at such a young age, learning what the Olympics is about, learning what that whole culture is, and moving forward into 2022, 2026, and, who knows, loved that experience and just excited to keep it going.
That is awesome, man. That is really cool. Like you said, you're still a young guy. You got the whole world ahead of you. You're gonna go for another Olympic cycle, I'm assuming.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to 2022. Hopefully, the world pans out, I suppose, and that's able to happen because, I love this sport. I love what I'm able to do every day. And, I just want to be the best athlete I can be. And I know where that ranks in terms of the world. And I'm just excited to put it a little bit more on the map, I would say, because we're a super small sport in the US, but when you look over in Europe, they fill up, 40,000 or 40,000 person stadium. So it's a huge sport over on Eurosport and all over the European continent. So I'm just excited to hopefully bring some of that excitement back to the North America.
Well, that's interesting. Why hasn't it really taken off over in America? Is it a business thing? Is it just not enough giant ski hills? Is it sponsors? What's going on?
I've definitely racked my brain about that before because we have a ton of jumps. Like if a kid wants to get involved in it and you're, even I'm from Illinois, so I should say that if you're like from the Chicago area, the Midwest has so many jumps. So in Fox River Grove, Illinois, in the northwest suburbs. That's where I'm from. That's where I grew up jumping, and we still have a club there, and we absolutely kill it. We've put out, three Olympians in 2018. Me and two of my teammates on the team. We're all from basically the same neighborhood. And then if you go out east, if you look in, New Hampshire, Lake Placid, like upstate New York, Vermont, there's a ton of jumps over there. And then out west, where I am now and where the team is kind of based, out in Park City, Utah, we have a club out here. Steamboat Springs has a jumping hill, so there's opportunities for it, and there's a lot of but over in Europe, it's just it's a sport you see every weekend on TV. And, when you watch it, you get it, right? You understand how simple it is just to go as far as you can. So we're really trying to make it happen over here in the US, and I'm excited to be part of it.
Yeah, that is crazy. But you guys do fly. So your whole thing though is, so you have to go distance, but then you also get style points in the air, don't you? So like, how does that work? Because you guys don't exactly flop around too much. I don't see how you can have your own style. What exactly is that? Like, I think it's like 20 points if I'm not mistaken. What do you get for those 20 points?
Yeah, so there's 5 judges watching your jump, and every ski jumper in the world, when they start the jump, they have 20 style points from each judge. And then as soon as the judge sees something go wrong, that's when they'll start deducting everything in half-point increments. So at an Olympic level, at a World Cup level, you're probably going to see a whole lot of 18s and 19s, because at that level, nobody's doing a ton wrong. Maybe a little bit iffy on the landing, maybe a little bit of arm movement here and there. But that's really, I would say most of the time, like 85, 90% of the time, the person who goes the farthest off the ski jump ends up winning that competition. Style points are just kind of agreeing with the end outcome, right? Like, so the judge sees somebody go super far, they're most likely going to give them a high style mark because, gosh darn it, it worked, right? Like,
Yeah, how'd you get there, right?
Yeah.
Well, you guys have like all these different techniques and everything. Sort of like there's the H technique, there's parallel, there's the V, and all that sort of stuff. And who's the guy who started Kongasberger? Am I saying that right?
I think, yeah, he was Swedish, started the V style. It's really just whatever way your body is able to make the most surface area, because that's the whole point of it. So some people really like the V style because they get their skis super flat with that V style, and they're able to, create their surface area that way, and get their skis out wide. And it's all about keeping your skis flat too. But like me, I go for a little bit more of an H, just because that's how I'm able to get my skis level and flat so I can fly. The judges don't really care if it's a V or an H. They're not going to deduct you anything for that. So it's not a huge worry in terms of the discrepancies of that. But it's really whatever your body really wants to do in the air. And that's kind of what you end up rolling with through your career.
Okay, so is there a rule of thumb, like if you're small and short, you do H, if you're big and fat, you do V, or what kind of body type goes kind of with which one?
Well, the only rule in ski jumping is that, fat don't fly. So that's what you got to remember. And then after that, it's really whatever your coach and you end up working on when you're getting to that higher level is really when you dial in all that muscle memory, as I'm sure it's the same for gymnastics and stuff like that. When I would say from age 13 to 17 is when I had my biggest change in my body. And also like that coach that coached me during that period of time had the biggest effect on me, just because that's really the age where I dialed everything in and became, I think, the jumper I am today. So I would say whatever that and in terms of the V style or the H style, you see so many different athletes trying so many different things. And really there is no rule of thumb. If you're tall and skinny, or if you're short and skinny, I would say just what ends up working. But I would say right now, still majority in that true V style is what's working really well.
So, and it's that mean everyone's kind of the same, or they of all, is this more of a body type thing, or is it more traditional? Like it's like for us, we have obviously lots of rules and everything has to be perfect and like this, and you can't really break out of that mold. Do you guys have that same sort of issue? And it's always like, well, they do H, they're not cool. Us V guys, we're awesome. Is there any of that going on? Or is it all just a natural progression of just learning how to fly a little bit farther every decade or so?
I think it's that natural progression, which is what I love to see. Even back in like 2005, Romarin set the world record, and he had a huge H style. Like his skis were parallel, but they were out wide. And I think that's when people really started to realize that, like, as long as you got that surface area, as long as you got the same amount as whether it comes in a V or an H, it really doesn't matter. Because there's people that win World Cups with that true H style where they're really far apart. Or you see a lot of people win World Cups with a true V style. And then now it's becoming a mesh of both, like where it's really like me, where I'm kind of not ambidextrous at all, but it's just kind of developed into something in between, where my tails are really far apart, but my tips are still even farther apart, if that makes a little bit of sense. But I would say the natural progression is going the right way. You see people going farther and farther each and every year with less and less speed. And I think it's cool just trying to keep up with everybody, because the sport's going in a positive direction. And I like where it's going. I think it's super cool.
That is cool. So, okay, so every year they get a little bit farther. So is there a new world record holder every year or every 2 years?
No, I wouldn't say so, because so much of that relies on, because there's only a couple hills you can really set. There's really two hills you can set a world record on. And that's Planica, Slovenia. It's a K200. And then there's Vickersund, Norway, and that's another K200. So we call those ski flying hills. And every year you show up for those 2 days of competition at that hill, and you don't know what the weather's going to be. But if that weather ends up being absolutely perfect, a little bit of headwind, where you can go from a super low gate with not a lot of speed, everybody's going to be trying to break that world record. But if you show up to that hill and it's a bunch of tailwind, it's just not going to be conducive to going that far. So a lot of people, so pretty much every year, there's that idea, is there going to be a new world record? Is there going to be a new world record? But like from 2005 until 2012, there wasn't a new world record, simply because you showed up to the hill, and just for like whatever 7 years in a row, the weather wasn't perfect.
Okay, so it's a lot more weather dependent. We work with a lot of snowboard athletes, and we've learned that really quickly. It's some days you just gotta go, and the weather just is so crap that it's no one's performing well. But then you got
Right.
those good days, and everyone's flying off the shelves in a sense, right?
Right. Yeah. It's exactly ski jumping wise. Like, there's 36 World Cups a season or something like that on the schedule every year. And maybe half of them are going to be perfect conditions and half of them won't be. So you just got to, you learn to deal with that. So yeah, maybe one year you don't go quite as far in Trondheim, Norway, but then the next year, because the wind's perfect, it's going to work out for you.
That's awesome. So, but you feel okay. So, like someone told me that it's basically you want to land going into the wind. Is that true, or do you want to be going with the wind so it takes you farther?
No. So yeah, it's like if you talk to a airline pilot, he's always going to want to take off into the wind.
Okay.
Even though he might not be able to go as fast, it's just going to be a way easier to gain that lift and float up into the air. Same thing with ski jumping. We'd rather jump into the wind, so the wind's coming up the hill and just keeping us afloat.
Oh, so it's not like you're going into it. So it's actually you're riding on top and it's pushing you up.
Right. So the ski jump is so steep, right? Like, yeah, we say we're going a football field and a soccer field in length, right? But we're not going flat ground that far.
Is that how far you're in a soccer field?
We're going, yeah, my personal record personally is 216.5 meters.
I don't even know. I can't even imagine how far that is. I have an airbag that is 40 feet, or about 15 meters. So over 20 times that. Like,
so you see kids, when they're like 7 going 45 meters off a ski jump.
I jumped off a little baby ski jump when I was a kid, and I did like a 360. I landed flat on my back and slid right down the hill, and everyone they had this hot tub there outside. Everyone was laughing at me when I was a kid. That's 2 feet maybe and fell. At
Right.
45, Jesus. So how old can you be when you get started? Like what's the minimum age? Is there a safety restriction? Like what did you start throwing children off ramps? Like someone's got to die, right?
The youngest kid I've ever seen go off a little jump was like 3 or 4, but like we're talking really, really small jumps here. So the
Really?
progression goes K5 meter. So that means, whatever, that's like 15 feet, but you're really not going that far when you first start. So, yeah, I would say I would feel, if you've skied before and you want to try it, I would feel so comfortable if you were like 4 or 5, sending them off. Because they're in their alpine boots, they're locked in, everything's like, you've gone farther off of that little jump than you would your first time ski jumping. It's not a hard sport to get into, and the progression is so safe and so easy. So you go from usually a 5 meter when you first start, you bump up to about a 10 meter, a 15 meter, and then you'll go up to a 25 or a 30, and then you go up to a 45, 70, 90, 120, and the World Cups and the Olympics are held on 90 and 120s. So,
And that distance is from where? 90 from like the edge of where you guys take off to where you land, or the top of the jump versus where you take off?
so it's the end of the jump. That's what's confusing about like ski jumping numbers and stuff, is because you're probably not going to understand it when I first say it to you, but it's the end of the jump. So where you start flying to where the hill, if you go all the way down to the bottom of the hill, where the hill starts flattening out, that's when you hear a number of a jump, like a size of a jump. That number means where that hill starts flattening out. That's called the K point, the critical point.
Oh, like KM in enzymatics.
Is it? We call it critical. It's critical because the critical point in German is spelled with a K.
I would guess it has the same. I never thought about that in university. If I could go back to university, I would ask a lot more questions. I know that, but I think it's probably similar. It's all Latin, European based, everything in science, right? So probably the
Yeah.
same.
So yeah, as soon as that hill starts flattening out, and that's called the critical point of the jump. So if you go past that, you're landing harder. It's going to be a little bit more difficult to land. But also, if you want to win a competition, you usually got to go way past that K point.
Okay, so, but what does the K point exactly tell anyone? Is that like a danger point? Is it a bare minimum point? And then it starts going up. Like think of like curling, where you have to get past the hog line and then you can start racking up points. Is that what that is?
I would say for the jumpers, it's kind of a danger line in a sense, especially when you're a little kid. When I was a kid and progressing, I didn't really want to go past that K point in practice just because we weren't strong enough to go past that. Even though you were like innately a really good ski jumper, you didn't really want to go past that point because you knew it'd be hard to land. But as you get older, I call it the fun point. You're not having fun unless you're going past that point. I'm like at 90 meter, where 90 is that point where it starts flattening out. I'm gonna go 105. Like that's just what's fun to me now. But I would say back then, it's definitely a little bit of a safety point because it's super easy to land before that because it's super steep and you're just going to come in super easily. Whereas past that point, you're always going to be coming in more and more like a rock.
Okay, so it's not a curling hogline thing. It's the end of the rope in a sense, and it says once you're getting to that K mark, then all of a sudden, hey, pay attention. Things are flattening out, and you might be in for a terrible landing if you're not paying attention.
Yeah. I would say that's definitely like the simple way to put it. I suppose it is also, if we want to get complicated, it's also the point if you go. Let's say I'm competing on a K90. If I go 90 meters, that means I get 60 distance points towards my jump. So so it's another way to like rank a jump as well. So if you go shorter than that K point, you get less than 60 distance points. And if you go more than that 90 meters, you get more than those 60 distance points. So it's also a way to judge a jump for the
Oh, it's like golf with a par 4, par 3, par 9, whatever it is.
but
And
want to have the highest score, not the lowest kind of thing.
Right. But it's the same. It gives you that sort of measurement of how difficult this jump is. Because I was going to say, is every single jump around the world all exactly the same? Or are there just different levels? So when you're junior national, you go off the 100K. And then once you're older, you go senior national, you go the 150K. Is it like that? And each one is a little bit more progressively longer and flatter with the K mark? Or how does that work?
I would say it is a good way to judge your skill. Like when you're a kid, you brag to your friends that are also in the sport. Like, yeah, I went off the K120 in Lake Placid last week. It was a blast, stuff like that. But it is definitely a way to because the higher the K point, the bigger the jumps has to be. So a K120 is much larger than a K70 in terms of just how far you're going to fly no matter what. So as you build up, your skill level, you're going to be going to those higher and higher K points. But no, every hill has its own character, which is what I love about the sport. The spectator can't see that. Like if you watch a jump from a Lake Placid jump out here, or you watch my jump from Park City, to you, they're going to look exactly the same, but to the athlete, they're wildly different.
Why? What makes them different? What's the difference? Like what do you feel like? So when you're flying in the air, like, can you feel the wind? Like, can you feel like, oh my God, today it's rocky out here today, or is it always the same, or how's that work?
So there's a couple of variables that I think about when I get to the hill, and your elevation. So Park City has much thinner air than sea level, right? So I'm at 3,000 meters right now, and or almost 7,000 feet. And then if I'm at sea level, say in Lake Placid, that's only at barely over 1,000 meters in elevation, it feels a lot different in the air. And then air pressure, just in terms of temperature outside. So that's why athletes, it's a winter sport, but it's also more fun in the winter because it's easier to ride on thicker, colder air. And then the wind direction, you want headwind. And all three of those things I feel immensely when I'm jumping. So headwind is probably the biggest one. If you have a little bit of headwind, your skis are going to be with you right away, and you're just going to be able to go. Elevation, it's, I equate it to, there's only a certain height helicopters can fly at or planes can fly at. So the higher you get, the harder it is to fly. So that's why out in Park City at this high elevation, desert plateau, it's a tough jump to jump. And I love to train out here because it might not be as much fun as going to Norway and jumping, right on the sea, but it gets you good. And then you can't really control temperature. You can't control any of the variables, but temperature, you just got to suffer through the summer sometimes, get really good, and then just know it's going to be a lot more fun in the winter.
But you can like literally feel the difference when it's cold. Can you like feel like, and you're so in tune to every little thing that it's almost like you're actually like sliding across the air when it's thick enough and when you're low enough. Can you actually feel the difference?
For sure. You get level, and especially I would say, if I go to a brand new hill, I'm going to have no prior recollection of anything else. So it's going to feel different than any hill I've ever jumped before. But let's say I'm at my home training grounds in Park City. If I go out and jump in the morning when it's 40 degrees out still, this time of year, and then I jump in the afternoon when it's 85, 90, the morning is going to feel so much better. Yeah, your skis are going to be there. Everything's going to feel good. And then you go into the afternoon and everything, we call it dead air. It's just dead out there.
Huh. But dead in terms of what exactly?
You can feel the activity with your skis. When you get out in the air, if there's a lot of pressure, some headwind, it's going to feel good. Everything's going to be moving the right way. And you're going to be able to, more so than just a controlled fall, you're actually going to get to fly a little bit and feel some extension. Whereas if it's dead air, you're just going to get out there and just start falling.
So you can actually get yourself to lift off. Like, so you guys are actually jumping off a little bit as well, but you can actually ride that like upwards before the actual down, more so than so if you do a bad one versus a good one, you'll actually rise higher based on that takeoff.
Yeah. So the takeoff, if we want to talk about that, so there's two main parts of the takeoff: gaining height. So using my tree trunks of legs, and then also staying super aerodynamic. So basically it's super simple. If you watch a World Cup level athlete, they're keeping their chest down, but they're just using their legs. So they're pushing up while staying super flat above the waist. And then that's going to keep them moving forward at a really high speed, because you gain all this speed in the in run, and you do not want to kill that by becoming unaerodynamic. So you want to stay just super level, parallel to the ground. And then those hips are just going to bring those skis up, and you're going to be off for the races, gaining height with all that speed you maintained and just going.
So your upper body is almost trying to cut through the wind as aerodynamically as possible, but your skis are riding the top of the wind in some metaphorical sort of way. And if
yeah, so you're never negative, right? Your skis are never going to be pointing down, but you want to be kind of riding that risky business of like kind of finding what's creating the most lift and what's carrying you out, and what's also most aerodynamic. My best, ask whoever's driving, roll down that window out of a 60-mile-an-hour car, because that's how fast we're going most of the time, and stick your hand out. And you'll get your hand to a right point where it just slams up against, the top of the window. And that's what we're trying to find in the air. So sometimes your hand's going to go back and hit the back of the window. Sometimes it's going to dive down. But once you find that right point, you're just going to be cruising up.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I really like that little analogy. I'm going to now go and take a little drive around and just start playing. Be like, what the hell are you doing, Greg?
I did it when I was 6 years old when I first started jumping, and I do it right now. I did it this morning.
Oh, so it makes so much sense when you say it that way. But can you actually control, like when you're in the air and you take off, if you have a bad takeoff, which I'm not sure exactly what that would mean, but I guess toes not all the way up and not quite aerodynamic, you're maybe off balance a bit or something. Can you get back on balance in the air, or are you basically screwed?
For sure. I would equate it. That's where we share a big similarity. When you're in the air and you're spinning, you're trying to stay spinning, but I'm trying to like stop turning or stop doing something like that. So my back and my core are a big part of that. And so everything, you just have to be so in tune with what's going on in your body when you're flying as far as, a World Cup level athlete, or I am sometimes. You got your hands out to the sides. Those are kind of paddles, but you also don't want to like create too much disturbance. So you're just fully engaged right here, trying to fix that and keep going.
So you want to stay as ideally a perfect takeoff. We have the same thing in trampoline gymnastics. But then when you're in the air, just like us, you can adjust a little bit, and you're moving your arms back and forth just a little bit, hopefully not too much. But I guess at those speeds, at what you say, 60 miles per hour, at that speed, every slight mini adjustment, even a millimeter of shoulder flexion or whatever, will make a really big difference, right?
Exactly, and that's why I think like you flex the right side of your abs and you're turning. So like, those little things do stuff, or you move your hand down a little bit, everything's going to change. So yeah, it's definitely the idea of like super small, even moving your head a little bit, trying to use it as a rudder. There's a bunch of different things you can do, but I would say you're not doing a ton of adjusting most of the time. But as soon as if something goes very wrong, that's when you have to be really ready to get back on the horse and figure it out, and make sure you just land sometimes.
Well, so how wrong can it go before you're done? Like how much can you adjust realistically?
So I'd preface this by saying, as I talked about before, the progression of ski jumping, where we start super small and you move up hills, and your coach is not going to move you up to a new hill until you are so dialed in on that smaller hill. And because of that, and the way we progress athletes all over, whether you're American, whether you're Canadian, whether you're European, no matter what, you're kind of moving at the same pace as a kid. But then when you get to those big hills, you're so good at falling correctly and making smart decisions in the air that we're actually the second safest Olympic winter sport in the world.
Really?
Yeah. Can you take a wild guess at a winter sport safer than ski jumping?
Which winter sport is safer than ski jumping? I would assume like the one where they shoot the guns, and then cross country trekking with the guns and stuff. I don't see many people getting hurt with that.
The only sport safer than ski jumping, if you're looking at any kind of injury, and the percentage of athletes that have season-ending injuries is curling.
I
No,
smashed my head open on a curling ice once as a kid. Went to the
yeah,
hospital.
so we're more dangerous than curling. Yeah. So of course, like, stuff happens just with such a, I've had friends, my sister even, ACL tears happen, broken collarbones happen, stuff can go wrong. But just the way we progress athletes, and we don't let them do anything crazy, don't do anything dangerous until they're ready. And I don't even think that's like, oh, you guys aren't really pushing the envelope or anything. No, we're just like being smart because we want you to enjoy the sport and actually like move forward at a safe level.
Well, yeah,
So
you're gonna
then
die.
had anything crazy happen, I've seen, torn ACLs, which just, I think any sport that stuff like that happens. And that's the risk we take.
Well, I was gonna say,
But
so your landings are gonna be like really the hard. That's where your injuries are gonna come from. It's just bad conditioning, basically. Maybe not flexible enough, stuff like that. Just bad body conditioning, not necessarily high impact sort of falls, right?
right, and that's why even to this day, at least 50% of every time I go to the gym is all preventative. So it's all this like band work with like, my AT bands and my tendons, and making sure those knees are ready to go. And so half of my workouts are just making sure that when I want to go super, super far, when I'm in a competition and all of a sudden I'm going past that critical point by 20, 30 meters, I'm ready to do it. Like, I don't have to worry about, oh shoot, I'm going to hurt myself. I'm ready to win the competition kind of thing. So yeah, stuff can go wrong. Like if you jump, if something goes wrong on the takeoff and all of a sudden your skis are hanging below the wind threshold, your skis are just going to go behind you, and you're going to be no skis, no help. You're just going to be doing a front flip. And, I've seen it
Could you,
happen.
could you land it?
It's No, and I've never done it, but I've seen it happen, and it is super scary. But there's obviously, stuff can go wrong. When that happens, you're kind of out of control. You're taught to keep your knees as straight as possible because that'll keep your body level. And kind of like a bike racer, or like if you crash on anything, you're trying to kind of roll onto that strong point and just let it happen. But even if something goes a little wrong, like let's say I jump a little early, my skis don't come up, all I'm trying to do is keep my knees super, super straight because that'll just innately keep my skis under me so that doesn't happen. You see mistakes happen when kids do progress too quickly, and all of a sudden they get into some trouble on like a K70, and then they bend their knees, and then you're toast at that point.
Oh man, and what's the worst injury that would happen? Like, because it's you guys have it slanted, so obviously you kind of roll with the punches, let's say. But what's the worst that you've at least seen?
Well, like I've had my concussions, nothing crazy. I think I've like had 2 concussions on a ski jump in my 13-year tenure, and all of them were when I was pretty young. But the worst I've seen is a torn ACL, but that was it was hard to watch, but it also wasn't it was just a weird freak little thing which happens.
Okay.
Um but I would say, in terms, I've been lucky enough to like never see anything too nuts happen.
Okay. So then why is the K point like where it flattens out? Why don't we just extend that K point like infinitely theoretically, and just make bigger and bigger and bigger mountains, and as long as you have a slope and you can kind of ride it, then the touchdown seems almost not so hard. Like if you guys have a good touchdown, it doesn't hurt the legs too much, does it? Or is it like or squatting like 1,000 pounds?
No, so that's what ski flying is basically. Is that's we get a couple times a season where we get to really push the limits of the sport. So that K point I was talking about, it's right now they're all at K200. So at 200 meters, they start flattening out. Back in the 80s or 90s, that K point, even on the same exact hill, was at around 185. So we've increased it to 200, and so we basically just keep digging out the same jump. So we are literally doing is every when we feel like technology, safety, everything is reached a point where we can make a jump bigger, FIS goes and does it. It's super controlled, super safe. But right now, the biggest hill in the world, I would say, is either Vickerson, Norway, or Planita. They're the ones who have been sharing the world record in terms of distance since like 2005. And so it was 239 meters in 2005, and that was held in Planica. And now Vickerson dug it out in 2012, and now we have jumps. Now somebody's gone 253.5 meters.
Whoa. And just in comparison, so that if that's like max out just for fun, let's see what the sport can do. At the Olympics, what are you landing?
So the Olympics, we have a normal hill, which is a K90 meter, and then we have a large hill, which is the K120. And we've had that at the Olympics for quite a while. Those same size jumps. But I think that personally, I do like those. I don't have any issue with like the size of hill. Like, I don't think there's really a huge need, because K120s, the large hill, which is what we jump pretty much every weekend during the World Cup season and at the Olympics, they're plenty big and they're super fun to watch. There's still some very exciting moments. And then kind of the fun parts of the season is 5 times a year we get to go ski fly on those K200s. So there's 5 different hills throughout the world that are ski flying hills. Just the 2 biggest happen to be the one in Norway and Planica. But I don't know if my heart could deal with jumping any more ski flying hills, because it is, being up there on a big jump like that is nerve wracking. You're hitting about 100 kilometers an hour on most of those, so it's quick.
That's crazy. So you're ski flying, like you said, 250 meters, but you're only doing 120 in the Olympics. Are they eventually going to make it in the Olympics, 150, and kind of the Olympics will kind of get higher as the ski flying goes higher? Is the ski flying like almost a test run for what people can do, and then they bring it back to the Olympics, a safer, more versatile version that everyone can kind of do? Is that how they're playing that game?
Yeah, I'm not really too sure. There's a pretty big limitations on the Olympics in terms of the size of hill. Like, the amount of space and people and the size of the hill you need to build a K200 is pretty amazing. Like, if you were to go to Planica, if you look up a picture, the mountain that thing is on is ridiculous. And they have a 120 right next to it, which is basically the biggest hill a lot of people ever jump in their lives, right next to it. And you can warm up and look at the ski flying hill and the regular hill and just be totally blown away by the double the size of the largest Olympic size hill. So I don't think we're going to be seeing a K150 even too soon in the Olympics, just because of, especially the Olympics, just because of the size and the amount of manpower needed to like make something like that happen.
But it's also like the sport, because like you said, you have like almost like a par system where it's not really just pure how long. It's, well, in what conditions and based on the distance and the height of the actual hill itself. So each one is itself its own little mini game where it's not just distance. It's how much can you go given what you're given. Is that kind of the strategy there?
Yeah, exactly. Like, back in 2002, Simone Amon won the Olympics on my home hill with a jump of like 133. Well, I can go 133 any day of the week, but it's just because he did it, with tailwind. It was like warm out. Like, there's so many variables. So he won the Olympics going 133. Even though I can go farther than that, doesn't mean I'm going to be able to go and do that. You know what I mean?
Oh, so almost like the I don't know, the Pride Olympics, we'll call it, is really the ski flying and seeing who can actually hit that every year or so. Is that what it is? And the Olympics is more for show for the country, but for the athlete's perspective, you're really gunning for that 250, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think the ski flying, I would never, even if it was like the right conditions, I would never show up to a competition and be like, oh, it's world record day, like I'm going to go get the world record. No, you're just, I think in our sport, like golf or something like that, you have to be like fully in the moment and in yourself, and block out everything else. Like, you can't be like, oh, I'm going to beat Peter today. Like, no. You got to jump as good as you can jump, and just know that you have the ability, if you have your best jump, to actually go and win that day. So, I mean, I think I try and carry that in every day when I go to practice or when I compete, is like, no, I can't expect to win today because somebody may have the day of their lives. But if I go put down a jump where I'm happy with it and I end up getting first, well, that's what I'm supposed to do. But let's say I have my average jump and I'm super happy with it and I get, third or fourth and somebody has the jump of their freaking life, then that's just what that's what
Part of the game.
Yeah.
That's part of it. So, but what about wind? Like, if you go and you're probably staying there just looking like, oh, it's windy. Okay, the wind's gone. Go, go, go. Is it like that, or is it always windy, or because of the fact you're already going 60 miles an hour, you just don't really notice it?
So back in, I forget when, let's say back in like the early 2000s, when or pretty much any time before, they have wind points now. So they actually have measurements, 5 places on the hill on each side, so technically 10, and they'll actually deduct points from you if you had more headwind than the next person. Or if you have wind, you'll get plus points. You actually get points added to the end of your jump. So that's where it gets super complicated, but they try and make it as level of a playing field as possible. So that's why if you're watching a World Cup or even the Olympics, somebody goes 145 and then gets deducted 20 points because they had a crazy amount of wind, and the next person gets added 10 points but goes 130, may beat that guy who went 145.
Oh, so you have atmospheric devices that measure the temperature, the altitude, and pressure, and all that sort of different stuff, and wind, and that is actually calculated into the score along with your 20-point style and your distance.
Yeah, so only wind is calculated in that because the temperature is the same for everybody.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
so they have a constant, I don't know, you call it a wind, is it
Wind, so we call it compensation.
You call it what, sorry?
Wind compensation, wind comp.
Oh, wind comp. Oh, I was thinking there's a name for an anemometer, I think is what it is to measure wind.
Just a little,
Yeah.
a couple so you know exactly how much wind per point. It's so complicated. Athletes don't need to worry about it. Like, it's not on my mind ever. If I get the green light, I'm going. But that's for the coaches to deal with. And maybe at some point, if I'm ever a coach, I'll know more about that. But right now, it's just, you just go and have your best jump.
Yeah, well, yeah, we won't get too technical. We'd rather stick with the athlete perspective. So you guys get your kicks off of jumping really, really far. How far do you think you could jump? Is there just basically saying that, look, as long as it's steep enough, we won't break our ankles? Or is there a max point where, 300 meters and you're starting to break everything? Is there a max?
Right now, if you're listening to this, or even Greg, if after this, go look up the world record, ski jumping world record, like Stefan Kraft. You're going to be like, I think that's about the limit of what we can do on a ski jump right now. So I'd say around 255. The jumps that are available right now are kind of the limit. In the future, if they keep digging those hills out, making them steeper, giving us more room to work with, that number is only going to go up. I don't know how soon we're going to see 300 or a number like that because, I really just don't know. I hope someday it happens. I don't know if it'll be while I'm an athlete, just based on how it's been progressing these days. But I'm excited to see where the sport goes. I don't know if any hills are planning on going under construction anytime soon to make them bigger, but if it happens, we'll be excited for sure.
Well, that's cool. Okay, so what happens if you put on a wingsuit and you go off a ramp? Could you fly?
There is a Canadian native who has done that before, and it is the funniest video on YouTube. But it wouldn't. Our suits are very well controlled, but the bigger the suit, the more surface area you're going to have. So there's definitely something to having a little bit too big of a suit and going farther. But the full-on wingsuit where your hands are just out here and you got the bat wings, it's been done, and it's a really funny video, and he crashes. But I don't think we're not going to be allowed to do that anytime soon.
Oh man, that would be pretty good. I'm thinking like you could do it. You could sling off the top of some mountain into a wingsuit, and then with a parachute have skis, and it could be like parachute ski jumping or something like that. Goes 1,000 kilometers, jumps from one country to another or something. That would be crazy.
I don't think I'll be the guy to pioneer that one, but I'd for sure.
Come on, man, you do it. Just believe in yourself. That's what they say, right? You'll make it to the Olympics as long as you believe in yourself.
Yeah,
No, it's not hard work or anything. It's just genetics and believing, you know, all
Yeah,
that, the lies people tell themselves about the Olympics. That's crazy. Okay, so then how do you train for this? So like I saw a video where you guys are stand on like a box jump and your coach will be there and you'll like kind of like you'll jump like over his head and he'll catch you and then you're in a position. Is that very common, or because I know you guys do that a little bit. What's the thinking behind that?
yeah, you're kind of doing that almost before every jumping session. It's just to like trigger the muscle memory. You're getting in your in run. You would get it off the like on the in run. You're getting in that position. You're jumping into your coach's arms. Just kind of practicing a little bit. But I would say my week looks like Monday. I get in a weight room, so I do weights. So I'll squat. I'll do some basic box stuff. A lot of core, a lot of back.
How much
And
can you
then
squat?
my max squat is pretty heavy. It's around 130 kilos.
Okay, that's pretty good.
So, I'm a 65 kilograms in the off season. I usually wean down to like 63 and a half during the.
4.
So I'm a small guy, but then so you're caring about power to weight ratio. So 130 for a 63 is pretty good, right?
Yeah, it's pretty good. More than I squat.
Yeah, it's solid. But I'd say like right now, this time of season, I'm doing about 100. Just kind of getting back into the swing of things, making sure I can push some weight around. And then Monday afternoon, you're taking a run, taking a bike ride, doing something. I'm doing cardio every day personally, just because I love it. I like getting outside. The mountains are cool, and I have them at my disposal, so I get out there. But then Tuesday, you're doing some plyo work, so more body weight and much quicker things happening. Probably putting at the max 40 kilos on your back and jumping, like doing some box jumps with that. And then Wednesday, you're doing speed, so you're doing sprints, you're doing bounding, you're doing jump, like broad jumps. And then Thursday, usually for me, is like simply just like a cool cardio day where I like go out and have fun, go out for a while. Make sure you're staying skinny and all that good stuff. And then, what am I on? That's Thursday. Friday. Usually Friday, you're getting back in the weight room again, or you're doing some more plyos, kind of, that second half of the week, you're kind of playing around what your body needs. I'm a bigger ski jumper. I'm not as skinny as I can be. So that's why I do a lot of cardio, and that's why I do a lot more body weight stuff. I usually only end up in the weight room squatting or doing some heavy stuff once a week, just for injury prevention, stuff like that. And then I'm doing plyos, so a lot of quick, hurdles, jumps, stuff like that. I'm doing that 2 or 3 times a week.
That's cool. So you do a lot of conditioning. What about like the hill? How often are you hitting the hills?
We're hitting the hill usually about 4 or 5 times a week.
And how many jumps will you do in a training?
6 or 7, 6 to 8, let's say. It does take a while to you're taking about a jump every 10 minutes. So it's not a ton of repetitions. That's why so much visualization, so much technique work and stuff like that comes into play, because you're only going to get 8 jumps a day at the most, because you don't want to jump when you're tired. That's not super conducive, because then your muscles aren't going to be ready for it. So you're out there in the morning, make sure you're fresh and getting those jumps in. And if you start to feel tired and your jumps go downhill, you got to make sure to be okay with like stopping.
So it's not like a man's sport where, I got to fight through the pain. It's more like, no, you have to be aerodynamic and everything's got to be going right. And if today you only get through 2 jumps before something feels off, you'll actually call it a day and try to figure out what happened and then go back another day. You won't just push through, will you?
Oh, I'll push through if it's just simply bad jumps. I won't push through if it's physical, like I'm tired. Like sometimes we'll do double sessions. So you'll, jump, get some food or whatever, and then jump again in the afternoon. So I guarantee every day I'm jumping, I'm taking at least 6, and I'm fighting through until that number 6. If it's not your day, it's not your day. But you got to suck it up until you're actually physically tired. But let's say you have 7 great jumps. That muscle memory's working. You're actually getting better. That's awesome. And then you're going to jump in the afternoon, but all of a sudden your first 2 jumps in the afternoon suck. And you're like, wait, I got to remember this great session I had in the morning. So then I might be like, all right, I had a productive day already. I don't need to ruin it. So let's stop.
Okay. And so then when you're at the top and you're okay, you're like, all right, this is going to be a good one. Everything's going well. What's going through your head? You're sitting on the bar. What's happening through your head? Like, can you give us a kind of a reenactment of how this goes in your mind?
Yeah, I would say I definitely, I think I might have, I'm not special or anything, but I think I have a little bit different view on how to go about that. I had a coach at one point say to me, like, you're never going to get better as soon as you let go of the bar, as soon as you let go and start going down the jump, you're not going to become a better ski jumper. Everything has to happen before that point. So if you got to take a minute on top of the hill and go through 5 or 10 jumps in your head that are perfect, that you like, and that and changing what you're working on, as soon as you put your skis on and get ready to go out on that bar, you got to, in a way, forget about that. You got to dial in because you're on top of a freaking ski jump. Like, you got to be ready to go. So you got to be in the moment, ready to go, ready to change what you need to change, but also just be completely relaxed, get that heart rate down, and just be ready to go.
So how do you get your heart rate down? Like, I know for me, if you're telling me to go fly off a ski jump, my heart rate's going to be kind of going a little bit, just a little bit. What would I do to try to bring that down a bit?
I'm not a huge fan of superstition, but I am a huge fan of rituals, right? So I have what I do every single time I jump. I tie my left boot before my right boot. I put my right ski on before my left ski. I buckle my helmet. I put my goggles on, zip my suit up, and you're ready to go, right? And for me, it's just because I do that sequence of things every single time. And for other people, it's a way of thinking. But for me, it's just my actions.
Okay, so for you, it's all about preparatory work and almost getting yourself into just a automation cycle of success, rather than trying to psych yourself up or slow your breathing or this, that, the other the moment of. It's all done way before, and you just want to say, hey, I want to automate it and just go from point A to point B and almost be like literally like on cruise control.
Exactly. And I know simply because whether, after I talk to my coach, what he wants me to do is lodged in there. And, I'm going to remember that in the back of my head. And I'm just, yeah, exactly. Like a cruise control. I do it every day. I'm just super, and I know exactly what I need to do.
And is there any way to train the actual flying part? Like, besides actually going over the ramp, do you guys ever go into like wind tunnels or
Yeah.
go skydiving or anything like that?
So I've done wind tunnels and I've done skydiving. What I will say is skydiving, you kind of, if you watch a skydiver, their hips, so like let's say this is their hips are like this, right?
Yeah.
Falling to the, for ski jumping, it's the exact opposite. You want to be a little bit piped, so your butt is a little bit higher. So actually we went skydiving for fun as like a team activity, and we all realized, we were like, this doesn't apply as good as I thought it was going to ski jumping.
Oh, that's interesting.
Cylinder things where you hop in and you're flying up and down, like the indoor skydiving.
Yeah,
And we were,
exactly.
granted, it was a blast. Like, I had so much fun doing it, but it was just not as applicable as I thought it was going to be. Interesting. But the wind tunnels is great because you can really dial in your in run. You can dial in your flight position to be super aerodynamic. Your in run is, and then you can dial in your air flight to actually, because the hand thing, you just do it with your whole body, right? You're just figuring out what actually ends up working.
That is really cool. I can relate with the whole, like, it just wasn't as applicable as we thought, where I did some wind tunnel in Poland, and, these guys brought me in and said, okay, well, we're going to fly and you know how to move in the air. So, let's do it. So we traded off. It was really, really cool. But I realized that the wind is going up. I'm used to basically judging my movements like gravity is pulling me down instead of everything being now opposite. So if I want to twist one way, I got to actually put my arm the opposite to let the wind blow me in that way, rather than normally if I want to twist that way, I'd be thinking about, but instead I got to do almost the opposite. So I get what you're talking about. It was really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so uh, what would be the ideal training? Like, if you guys had $1 billion and so the government gave you a grant, $1 billion, what would you invest in? Would you invest in more like physiotherapy and athletic therapy and just injury prevention and strength and conditioning and power bars and stuff like that? Or would you invest in some kind of wind training tool where you could, how they have the surfing sort of fake surf waves? Could you make a fake version? Like where would that money go? What's the most important part that you have to really train?
That's a super interesting question. I know that it exists, but a wind tunnel with the wind coming up from the bottom, like a ski jump would be, I think that'd be super cool. But that's a super interesting question. I don't think I've ever thought about that, honestly. Aerodynamics and equipment is so important, and like finding the right materials for different things and your skis and whatnot, it can get so complicated. But I would say if I had $1 billion, I would just build a brand new jump. It would just be fun to have a super modern jump that we could go and ski no matter what. I think something like that would be really cool.
That would be cool. Would you ever see that if you were to be able to get something like that and everyone could train it, you could start doing flips and you start having people go 250 meters doing like a double side flip? Do you think that would ever be possible if you learn to control
But
it?
we're doing something super wrong. No, we'll leave that to you guys and the aerialists out there. I've done one backflip on skis before, and it was not my cup of tea. I'll say that. So
Really?
no,
Why? Why? What's wrong? What's wrong? I can't believe a guy that jumps off of cliffs, for lack of a better term, doesn't like doing backflips. I think that would be way easier. Like, what's the difference?
I think it's just a kid who can do a double cork on skis when he's 7. Would never imagine doing what I was doing when I was 7, right? Like going off at K70. But I could also never consider doing a double cork right now, and I don't, and I love what I do. So I think it's just two different worlds. You'll never see ski jumping evolved into like the flipping stuff. I think we're having plenty of fun just pushing the limits in terms of how far you can literally fly, because I don't think there's any sport as close to us in terms of where we're actually learning how to not just get some height and fall. We're actually trying to push limits in terms of how far we can actually go.
But so it's a different mentality, like you said. So yours is really about being aerodynamic, the same way I don't know, fighter jet pilots, engineers, are making more aerodynamic planes. They're not worried about doing flips with the planes. They're just worrying about that more engineering aspect. Would you say your sport is more of an engineering sport rather than an acrobatic sport?
Oh, totally. That's the only reason I managed to like pass geometry. It was just like knowing the angles that my like ankles were at in the air when I was like 13. I was able to like manage to pass high school. But yeah, I would say so much is applicable to aerodynamics and stuff like that. And I love like meeting a pilot. And actually, a lot of ski jumpers get so into it that they become pilots. And like I have a friend who's a pilot now and stuff like that. So it's definitely, there's a crossover there, just with the pure aerodynamics and lift equations and whatnot. I'm not quite smart enough to know all that stuff, but I would say very similar to, if you're an engineer and you look at a ski jump, you just kind of get obsessed with it. You love to see it because it is so, you see these athletes figuring out, oh, this is actually what a plane wing does. And here I am going farther because of it.
That is so cool. Okay, so you're a plane wing. What does it feel to be a plane wing? Like, what is actually going through your head during the jump? Are you just focusing on one point of the landing? Are you thinking about just keeping your perfect technique and balancing? What's going through your head?
Yeah. I mean, I would say you've been on a plane and you felt some turbulence, right? Like
Hmm.
you felt it jerked up and then jerked down.
Yeah, yeah. What is?
Feeling that in real life is one of the wildest things in the world. Like when you're controlling it and when you're the rudder and when you're the pilot, I would say when you're in the air and you get a gust of wind and you bump up a couple feet, or when you like catch some tailwind and you get pushed down, that's where, your heart gets racing and is actually, in a way why I do the sport. When I end up like 20 feet over the ground and all of a sudden I'm freaking out, that's where I think I hit my like, that's the closest thing I'll ever do to a drug, I guess, is just like where you're just fully in the moment, your eyes just narrow in and all your focus is on is going as far as possible, but also like not getting hurt. But definitely I'm in the air, my chin, you got to pretend, the best way I say is like a string is coming from your spine and pulling you up. That's kind of the idea you have to have. So whether that means you pull your head like this or whether that means you pull your shoulders up, there's a lot of different ways to do it. But you just want to focus on just pulling out towards the fans or towards the chairlift or whatever, not so much looking down at the ground.
So you don't look at the ground.
I'm looking like at the flat part of the ground because I still need that peripheral. I still need to like see where I am. But no, I wouldn't say you're like looking directly. You're not looking straight down.
You're not looking straight down. You're looking at a point. You're getting from point A to point B, and that's your focus. So you don't get worried about, oh, don't look down. You're gonna fall. So
What I,
you're
what I like to say to kids, like if I go back home and I'm coaching a group of kids, is wherever you look is where you're going to go. So in the air, if you look out, you're going to go farther than somebody who does everything exactly the same but look straight at the ground.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And what about the landing then? So how does that feel? Like when it's coming. It almost looks like you're like a bird, just slowly just kind of picking where to put your foot down. Is that how it is, or is it a lot faster when it's actually happening?
It's definitely a lot fast. It's that the landing part I would say is very much involved with like the muscle memory side of things. You kind of know in your head when you're supposed to start putting the legs under you and like getting ready. But it's also a balance of you get unaerodynamic when you start to land. So you want to wait till the very last second to toss that in. But if you land, most jumps are totally like non-impact. They feel fine. You're landing at a good point of the hill, but it's only I would say it's only in competitions that it really happens. And sometimes you train for it and get ready for it. But if you're really high and you're going to go really far, that's a whole nother thing that goes through your head. Like I have to be ready to really land hard, but also land well because I don't want to get deducted any style points.
That is crazy. So, okay, so it's not that bad. So generally you just kind of sweep on through, but it gets worse when you get farther from your K point, right? That's when your brain starts going a couple of miles a minute thinking, okay, make sure you're landing knees, no valgus knee rotation or anything like that, stuff like this.
I would say for me personally, if I end up being that high if I end up going that far, it's because I did everything else right. And my mind actually, I think, slows down in a way. Like I'm in the air and I have this perfect jump and now I'm super high. I'm going to go, way past that K point is I get into a different state of mind where now it's just about like riding it out. Like this is what I live for. This is what I'm doing here. I had a perfect jump at every other point. So now let's just finish it off well. But it's those bad jumps when you make some mistakes and you don't go as far and you're kind of pissed. That's when your brain is just working a million. You're thinking about what you did wrong before you even landed. And then you just want to get back up and do it again.
Right. And okay, so then what's it like on an average landing? Like imagining your point of reference is jumping from like a one-story house, a roof, and landing without rolling. Is it like that? Is it less than that? More than that?
I would say the couch I'm sitting on, if I were to jump off of it right now and land, that's about what the average landing is like.
Really?
It's so not a big deal
Huh.
if you right that I would say it's like maybe your kitchen counter.
Kitchen counter. Okay. That's not bad if you're ready for it. I think a lot of people could do that. I could see. Okay.
Yeah,
I always assumed it was going to be a lot more. You think you're flying through the air like, oh my God, this guy's going to wreck himself. He doesn't do everything perfectly. But maybe, I guess, with the whole slant, then it gives you time to adjust on your landing too, right?
think about how easy let's bring it back to planes. Think about how easy the average plane landing is.
I've never driven a plane or landed one.
Like, never been like so if you're on a plane, even if you're just a passenger, you can leave a cup of water out there on your lap and it won't spill, right? Like you come down so easy. The ground pressure is coming up the hill, so you're just riding the ground pressure when you're like 2 or 3 feet off the ground, and then you just put the landing gear down like a plane would, and you land pretty easily.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so that's not too bad. So it's only when you're landing off and having to now adjust, that's where the knee injuries and stuff like that happen.
Exactly. So yeah, if you're coming in super high, or if the wind gives out and you end up falling, from your ceiling, if you end up falling 8 or 10 feet because you made a mistake or the wind gave out, that's when, yeah, it's going to hurt a little bit.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, what happens if you're just getting your landing gear ready, and then all of a sudden you get under the tailwind or whatever it is, and then all of a sudden it drops you down suddenly, like you're on a plane when you drop, 100 feet or whatever it is, and then you get slammed right into the ground. Does that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I would say you're never going to like catch some tailwind off guard. Like you're never going to be like, oh my God, all of a sudden it's tailwind just for this last 20 meters of my jump.
Okay.
But I would say it's really common for that to happen and for you to land super hard if you're unprepared and you're going way farther than you want to go. So if you end up going way farther and maybe you're not as experienced and don't really know what's going on, and you end up falling and landing super hard, that's when the injuries come in. But also, I say that, but also that happens to me maybe a couple times a year, and I've seen it happen to Olympic level athletes where they just get caught off guard with the wind or something like that, or they take too much speed, something happens, some variable goes wrong, and they end up going way too far than you'd ever want to go, and they got to bring the landing gear down. And yeah, it's going to hurt, but that's also why we're in the gym so much, because we know that's going to happen. It's inevitable. So let's just make sure we're as safe as possible when we're doing that.
Okay, that makes sense. So you go in not just thinking to the competition, it is not just thinking, okay, I'm going to go farther than last time. You're going in saying, well, I want to go, 125. I want to go 122.3. And you'll talk to your coach about based on how your body's doing and what the temperature's like, and you guys will set a kind of goal. And it's not just for distance, right?
Yeah, I would say, you definitely have that talk with your coach most of the time, where it's just like, what gate you want to, because there's different gates on the hill that you can decide what speed you're going to take. And that, ton of variables go into that. But usually, what gate you're going to go from, because most days there's not a lot of wind. It's a good day. I'm going to go from gate 13. But then the coaches will let you know, like, let's say the wind picks up when you're on top, he's going to yell at you, tell you to move down 4 or 5 gates. And then, then you can be confident because your coach is always looking out for you. You need that second pair of eyes to look at the landing hill because we can't see it up top. So we always
need to see where you're landing.
No, it drops off. We don't know what's coming until we get over.
So you pick your gate, and how many gates are there? Is it like a set number or?
No, every hill's a little bit different. I would say anywhere between 20 different starting positions you can choose from to 40.
Okay. So then you set it all up. You and your coach have more of like I'm thinking almost like a football strategy, I'm thinking about the air, wind, and this, that, and the other, and where you're going to start and the distance you want to run. And you have a full game plan. It's not just wing it and hope you stick it, right?
Yeah, for sure. Competitions are super easy because the 5 judges that judge you based on 20 points also decide what gate to go from based on who's there and how good everybody is. But yeah, in training, when everything's up to you, I wouldn't say it's like a super common thing for us to like go in with a crazy game plan, but you will kind of decide on a gate to go from. It's that simple. Like you just are like, I'm going to go from gate 20 today. It's a little bit of tailwind. And then let's say you take 3 jumps there. And then you have a super good jump and go a little bit too far. You're going to drop it down to maybe say gate 18 or gate 17 and just make sure that you can have that same exact jump, go a little bit shorter, but still get better.
Okay. So everything's all planned out. I never really realized all the strategy behind it. So that is very, very cool. So then where does a sport as a culture move forward? Do you guys just keep inching for more distance? Are you changing your judging system? Is it different sponsors, a different brand marketing? You're talking about earlier about getting more into the public image. Where does your sport go?
I don't want to I love this sport, right? If it stayed the same, I would be happy. But I think that we could make it a lot more fun for the athletes too. Like Ryoyu Kobayashi, he didn't win the World Cup overall last year, but he won it the year before. And he's just like, he's my age. So he's like this super cool kid. He just like shows up in Air Jordans and big Oakley sunglasses and a cool jacket every single competition. It's just like he's like LeBron James walking into the arena. Like he's just has a little bit of swagger about him. And I think that is like where I'd love to see the sport go. It's just like a little bit cooler, make it a little bit more marketable. Every time he walked into a competition, he got posted on social media because he just looked more badass than everybody else. So it was just like, why can't everybody do that? Like, we can look cool. We can like still be a team. We can still wear the same jacket, but like, I'm going to wear a cool pair of shoes or a cool pair of sunglasses and just have fun with it. Cause you're doing this pretty crazy thing. You got to relax a little bit. You got to make sure you're not all tensed up and pissed off at the world. And, there's a term Nordic dork out there. And I think if we changed it from Nordic dork to something a little bit cooler, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. That goes for Nordic combined. skiing and Nordic jumping. So I make fun of myself, and I also make fun of 2 other sports at the same time. So it's super
You
easy.
gotta be able to make fun of yourself. Every sport's got some really stupid stuff, some great stuff, but stupid stuff. You know, we still got little short shorts, you know, and the coaches will say, you know, wow, it's so I can see the lines. I'm like, well, I'm sorry. I've been in this sport for 25 years. You can wear track pants and a snowsuit, and I'll know if you bent your legs or not, you know. So I'm with you 100% of the way. And I think a lot of sports are going like that. We're seeing that with all the different freestyle communities popping up all over the place. And everyone is just kind of, I'm not sure exactly where they're going, but everyone's looking to be unique and different. And would that become a problem down the road for you? Because, or maybe that's a good thing, because, you know, if maybe the sport itself can't really get much different, you're doing your aeronautics sort of stuff. I hope that's the right word. I'm not sure. I think that's the right word, right? Aerospace engineering, we'll call it. And then you basically have almost like a separate competition, like what you're talking about, which is more show to the crowd, play it up like a superstar, do more of the media friendly stuff. And could you see those two as separate, or would you try to mix them together more?
Well, I think no matter what way I look at it, no matter the point in my life, you know, it's always going to be about sport first, right? Like I'm always going to be in the gym before I'm giving a care. Like, you know, like I had to get my stuff done today before I talk to you. Like that's just how it's always going to be. You know, sport comes first, athletics come first, me personally.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with just like finding a cool something that you like, a little niche that is going to make it you. So when I jump and I have a good jump, instead of doing the same fist pump celebration, if I do something a little bit different, and it gets me a little bit more notoriety, I'm never going to complain about that. And I'm not like seeking it out or trying to find it, but you know, there's going to be a day where, like, you know, I know the way I'm working and how I'm progressing, that like I'm going to hopefully have some opportunities in the future. So I just hope that I can make a little bit of a name for myself, no matter if it's winning competitions or being the cool kid. I don't really care. I'm not a cool kid. I'm a huge dork, but we'll see how it goes.
Nor dork. That's so funny. I've never heard that before. But yeah, no, it's finding the happy line, because yeah, if you're so worried about your image that you don't actually put the hours into the gym, then what are you doing? You know, we work with some different associations from an educational perspective, and they're having that same problem. It's like, well, some of the athletes are like, well, I'm trying to get brand endorsements, so they're, you know, doing the sport, and I won't mention the sport, of course, but they're doing the sport with their cameras out and phones out and everything, and the coaches are like, hey guys, we still have work to do, you know, and there's actually a bit of conflict there. So it's finding that happy medium, because yeah, you know, it's good to be focused on the sport, but if you don't have your own unique image as well, like you said, a unique fist bump, or even for me, it's just like a nice little Hawaiian shirt. This became sort of my thing, you know.
Yeah,
And
so
it's all that little stuff, you know, that, you know, it adds a little spice, a little uniqueness, a little fun to it. And I think a lot of traditional sports are kind of learning how to sort of do that through social media. It's a big learning curve.
yeah, for sure. And I bring it on because I think, you know, I would not have been able to like bring my story or what I'm able to do to the public, like I, you know, have been in the past. So I'm thankful for it, that it's around, because, you know, whether it's once or twice a week posting something, it's worth it in the long run, because yeah, I mean, I'm able to get free helmets and get free goggles and you know, free skis because of who I am as an athlete, and that means a lot to me. And I hope it only, like, you know, gets bigger.
Well, yeah, because it's telling a story. Everyone knows the rule of marketing is tell some kind of story. You can tell a short story, a long story, a middle-sized story, a weird story, a fun story, but people want a story, and all the athletes need to have stories instead of everything being a collective, just a team. They're gonna have to start putting in that unique variable, you know, as they kind of develop, which I think is good, because I think it would be easier to get sponsorships doing that. You know, have you ever seen good examples of, you know, ski jumpers jumping over like 200 Volkswagens for some commercial or anything like that?
I've seen an Audi go up a ski jump. I don't know if I've seen, like, I mean, there's obviously, like, I live in Slovenia when I'm in Europe. When I am in Europe, I live in Slovenia. Our coaches are from there. Beautiful country, love it. But some of their pro ski jumpers, you see them on, like, you know, on their telecom mobile, you know, sponsorships and stuff. But I've never seen anything like super funny and like something that I actually like thought was awesome. But you know, if you want me to jump over 200 Volkswagens, I got you. I think I can pull that one off for you. So.
I think it'd be harder to get 200 of them lined all up and set ready to go. Probably more the issue.
Yeah, it would be an expensive commercial for whoever wanted to do that for sure.
And if you miss and then crashed into them, oh man, that would be terrible.
Yeah, yeah. Get some good insurance money, so it'd be all right.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Could you do something simple where you put like a bullseye at the end, and it's not really about distance; it's actually about landing in one specific spot?
There's actually some competitions. Like when I was growing up, the big thing was after every regular competition, there would be a longest standing competition. So you can pick your gate, you can pick how far you go, or you can pick the distance. No, sorry. There is a bullseye competition. It's not like an official thing that happens with FIS, but sometimes a local club will do it, where they'll do a spray paint at 75 meters, and whoever hits 75 meters exactly gets a couple $100. Oh, and then there's longest standing competitions where it's you pick your gate, the jury isn't involved. As long as you don't touch the snow with anything other than your skis, you win. So you just go as far as you can. Style doesn't matter.
Oh, okay. So these are like the fun little games, I guess we'll call it, that you guys kind of play between the actual competitions?
It's usually, I did it a lot. We did it a lot when we were growing up, and it's a crowd pleaser. Like I was lucky enough to be from a club that would get 5,000, 6,000 people at the competition just because it was such a big thing in the community. So we had to kind of make sure they kept buying booze and kept buying tickets and kept buying food. So we would have a 5-hour long competition that included a 2.5, 3-hour regular competition with a bunch of athletes, like regular, like you see in the World Cup. And then we would have this crazy longest standing competition where it's just like, go as far as you possibly can and you win $1,000. Like it'd be crazy.
Jeez. Okay. So then what's the normal competition structure? How many jumps do you have to do? Is it just a one-time go? Is it over a best of 3 heats, or how does that work?
At a World Cup competition, you have a qualification. So they narrow it down to 50 athletes the day before. And then they have, and then in the regular competition, you have a trial jump. So a practice jump does not matter for a thing. And then you have your first jump, and then you have your second jump. So it's the first and second jump added up together. But after the first jump, they cut to 30 people.
Okay. So it's elimination.
Yeah, it's an elimination. So the final round is 30 people. And, and if you get top 30, you get World Cup points and stuff like that. So that's why you always want to be top 30. You get on the world ranking list and stuff like that. But that's kind of how it goes.
Is there prize money?
Yeah, so in a World Cup competition in the winter, summer's a little bit different. In the winter, first place gets 10,000 Swiss francs. Last place gets 100 Swiss francs, or 30th place gets 100 Swiss francs. So it just goes down the line.
How much is that in US dollars for our?
It's almost exactly the same.
Okay.
I think it's a little bit more. So 10,000 Swiss francs is maybe 10,500. It's pretty similar.
Okay, so that's not bad. And does everyone get a little bit? Like the top 4 all get prize money?
Top 30 get prize money.
Top 30 get prize money.
Yeah, so 30th place gets $100.
$100?
Yeah.
That's nice. Here you go, a little token. Do they cover expenses and all that? Like if it's part of the World Cup?
Yeah, if you're on World Cups, if you're at the highest level, they're paying for expenses. They're paying for hotels and plane tickets.
And does the U.S. team also pay you a salary because you're basically focused on them?
No, I have a day job.
Oh, man. So you are representing your country, have a day job, and are hoping to scrap together some winnings from competitions?
Yeah. Yeah.
How else can these guys make money? Do you ever do shows for I don't know, the Air Force or something? I don't know.
That'd be, if they want to hit me up and they want a show, I could give them a show, but.
All right. Well, I know all the guys in the Air Force. I'll give them your number.
Sweet. But yeah, no, it's definitely a little bit of with me right now is I'm not in the top 30 very often. I'm not really putting out the results I know I can, but also maybe I'm just I got to trust the process a little bit more. I'm still young, so I know where I can be, but I'm just not there yet. So right now it's tough. I give tours up the Utah Olympic Park, where they held the Olympic events and the bobsled events in 2002. that's where I work and that's how I make my money. So I can go do all these things. I'm lucky enough that I got a scholarship to the U.S. Olympic Committee to at least get free college. So I'm a college student too.
Nice.
So I'm doing that.
What are
Yeah,
you
have a
thinking,
day job. No, probably not. I'm not. I am so bad at math. It's ridiculous.
Dude, the only way I passed biomechanics in university was that I got my teacher a job. He comes up to me, like literally before we're about to go in to do the exam, and he said, "Hey, Greg, you work at the Canadian Sports Center or whatever it is." Because I was on team at this time, and we did testing there all the time. So it was it's like a big giant research center, and everything's really really cool. And so yes, he's like basically just said, "You work there." I'm like, "Yeah, sir, I can help you get a job if you want. I can introduce you to Chris Dawson was the guy at the time." And he's like, "Okay, perfect." I do the test. I know I'm going to fail basically because I'm like looking at them like projectile motion, and considering I'm a trampoline guy, they didn't make it click for me, you know. And that's how.
Right.
So then the exam is done, and then I'm like, I'm so screwed here. But you know, I'm already got my provisions in place. And then I look back and it just says pass. It doesn't even give me a grade or anything. It just said pass. And then that was it. And I saw him working there. He sent me a message about like 2 months later saying that he's doing a part-time job there. So that was pretty funny.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to make your connections, you know?
Well, that's the thing. There's a lot of different ways you can move through the world. And, you know, that's the freestyle guys are learning that. It's not just the one way to go forward. You know, everyone's there that needs a bit of help here and there. Everyone's got deficiencies. Everyone's got strengths, weaknesses. And as long as you can help somebody who needs help in a particular area, I think that's more important than just doing the straight and narrow, you know?
Oh, yeah, completely.
Yeah, but that's cool, man. That's really, really cool. So what happens next for you? You are now going to get out of this whole Corona thing. You're going to start training again. And when's your next competition?
My next competition, hopefully, fingers crossed, we do jump in the summer. So hopefully we're going to be competing. We usually have like a 4th of July competition back home and have a bunch of fun. But that's just highly unlikely at this point. But hopefully in September, we'll have some summer competitions to go to over in Europe. We'll see about that. Everything, you know, I'm training. We're working hard. We're going to be jumping soon, hopefully. But, you know, right now, it seems like the world's on hold, especially down here in the U.S. There's a whole lot more than the coronavirus thing right now. And we just got to, you know, hopefully somehow come together as a community, as a country, especially being a white boy from a white city in a white sport. I just hope, you know, I have way too much privilege, and I guess, you know, you can cut this out if you want completely, but
No, I just want to hear people's experiences. So no, keep going. I'm interested.
I've had so much privilege in my life, and I'm so lucky to have the opportunities I've had. But I understand like so many people are oppressed in my country personally, and right now it's hard for me to like feel so excited about representing the USA when really I struggle to like understand what's happening in my own country. So for right now, I mean, the world's on hold, and I'm just praying for the people that are not as fortunate as I am to, you know, make sure they get the help they need and get through this, because I'm in the suburbs of Chicago, and I you know, I'm watching the news and seeing my city on national television, and it's absolutely heartbreaking, you know, watching these people get killed by, you know, police and, you know, they've been silenced long enough, in my opinion. So you can get mad at the looting, and it is sad that, you know, a city and a towns are falling apart, but, you know, I think they've just been oppressed long enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a tough one, you know, and I don't know who knows the right answer. You know, they said that it was, oh, well, when the spring comes, then all of a sudden everything will die, it'll be fine. But then they're saying, well, now everyone's opening up. Everyone basically broke out. And then it's like,
Right.
okay, well, now it's all of a sudden there's going to be a revival of the virus because everyone kind of did it too prematurely. So now we're going to be stuck back in the dark ages as coming September. So a lot of companies are going online, you know, and that might be just the way of the world. So that would be like a hedge and insurance against real life events like, you know, Corona, obviously. So maybe that's where everything goes. Like, would you ever see that you could do a ski jumping event online? But
No.
Why not?
No, we've had enough trouble just even trying to figure out how to deal with global warming. Like we're at that point in our sport. We have like refrigerated tracks, refrigerated landing hills, where we're making sure we manage to put off a competition in, the middle of Germany in winter. But granted, it's, 10 degrees Celsius outside. It's ridiculous. So, we have enough global events.
I never thought about that. Yeah, because every time I look at the ski hills, there's less and less snow all the time. So so you guys are busy trying to figure out the technology to, let's say, artificially chill your ramps and your hills and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, I never even thought about that. Oh my God, so obvious. Yeah, because what happens if it all goes away? Like, is it just going to be because that's just got to raise the price of a competition now, right?
Yeah, no, competitions are so expensive to host. Granted, thankfully, it's a big enough sport in Europe where countries want to host a World Cup event because they'll get a crazy amount of fans, and it is a blast. It's just like a booze party, and people love watching people go far, which, I like going far, so I'm happy to be there. But, thankfully, it's a big enough sport where we're actually pouring money into making sure we figure all that stuff out. But, it's definitely, thrown a wrench in the sport the last, 20, 30 years, where we have to now, if you're building a World Cup level hill, you have to have everything refrigerated. You have to have the ability to keep ice on the hill at plus 10, plus, 12 degrees Celsius.
Oh, I never thought of it. Yeah, because like what happens if all the snow goes away in the world, kill all the polar bears, kill everything, and you also kill your sport too. So, but you guys are ahead. So are there new hills being made now with this new technology?
Yeah, and a lot of hills just have like been rebuilt with the technology. Like they'll just change the tracks out. It's for a big complex, $1 million isn't a huge deal. So it's about $1 million change. They rip up the old track and they put in the new one, and it's refrigerated. It has a cooling system that can keep it cold.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay. So it's not the end of the world. You guys have been able to quickly adapt. That's cool.
Yeah.
That is very cool. Okay, so before we go, can you tell us what it was like to compete at the Olympics? What was going through your mind? Were you just nervous? Were you happy? Were you excited for your country? Were you just, I don't know, what was going through your head?
Yeah, I think I was, I had a lot of talks with whether it be my sports psychologist or my coaches or my parents, where it was like, this is just, for me right now, this is just the first step, right? Like, I'm at the Olympics. I'm representing my hometown, my friends back home that stayed up until 4 a.m. to watch me. For that, I was just more excited because it was like, I really did a good job of having absolutely no pressure on myself. I was just like, whatever happens, happens. I am not going to win, and I don't expect to lose. So I'm just going to go have the best jump I can have. Granted, it wasn't the best jump in the world, but gaining that experience when I was young and I didn't have that pressure, I think is going to benefit me a ton in the years to follow, just because, I know how it works now. I know what to do and what not to do the days I get there, especially competing, with and meeting other people, whether it be, any part of the media. There's so many different things that go into it that you don't expect at a regular competition. So I think getting through it once was awesome. And now moving forward, I'm just excited to keep it going and do it again, and maybe do a little bit better this time.
Hopefully, man. Well, keep training hard, keep doing your thing. And it sounds like you really got your head on your shoulders, going to university or college and getting all the education, not just focusing on sport. I know a lot of people that just throw everything away thinking they're going to get a medal. So it's good what you seem to be doing is awesome, man. So I really wish you the best of luck with everything. And feel free to hit us up if we can help you in any way. I'm thinking right now we have a whole bunch of athletes that want to do cool content. I'm thinking, is there a way we can do some kind of cool collaboration? So maybe I'll hit you.
I'm sure we could. Yeah. Sure we can figure some stuff out, especially when we get back on the hill. I got nothing but time on my hands these days with everything going on. So, yeah, for sure. We'll stay in touch. It was super nice meeting you and talking to you.
Yeah, man. No, it was great. Thanks for your perspective, and thanks for the little bit of knowledge that you could provide us. I feel like I actually understand what your sport is about now. So thank you, and I'm sure my audience feels the same way, saying, thanks for the experience, and we wish you the best of luck, and we'll be watching for you next time.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed and learned a few things. There's a big world out there worth exploring, and I'm happy to be able to bring these great experiences right to you through this podcast. If you enjoy this podcast and learned something, please share and take a screen grab of our funky cartoons and hashtag GRT certified for a chance to win a shout out to our community. Also, please leave us a review to be part of helping this information get out into the industry. It's much appreciated. Along with these podcasts, we have a large online content hub that we call the GRT Network, with many other interviews and full tutorials and written content discussing everything about acrobatics. We will be constantly growing this archive of videos like a cross between Netflix and Wikipedia for anyone in the acrobatic industry. We also have a complete online educational program for athletes of all levels that provides a do-it-yourself pathway to success for any acrobat. Check out our constantly growing library of playlists that will teach you anything from tightening up your social media, to how to get around fear, to even learning all the biology that underlies all your acrobatic skills. We work very hard with our team around the world to provide this exclusive content for you and appreciate any donations made to the FTA to help keep these episodes coming at you. And if you want all the content, become a GRT Network full member to get exclusive content before everyone else and access to special discounts and giveaways through our amazing global partners. Thanks guys, see you next episode.